Okay, so we're going to switch up a little bit back to getting a bearing or a heading, or you'll see it referred to as an azimuth as well. It's basically just on our compass or on our sphere, these 360 degrees that we have here. We want to know either what direction I need to, what number I need to hike in order to get to a certain point, or what direction it is if I can see a certain point. I want to know where that is for me so I can triangulate things, so I can tell people that I want you to hike at a heading or an azimuth of 120 degrees. So I'll line up 120 degrees on my little white tick mark underneath of the bezel here. Spin my compass till, as I call it, red Fred is in the shed. And then my direction of travel arrow is going to point me off in a direction that I need to walk. Now, in an ideal world, I can walk in a straight line, and that'll take me exactly where I want to go. But more than likely, I'm going to have to look up and see what geologic feature is in line with that arrow, hike to that feature, because I'll have to go around things. But I want to make sure I stay on that line, because 120 degrees is still 120 degrees whether I'm here, or over here, or over here. And they'll both take me to different areas. So I want to find, say, a tree or a rock outcrop that I know is in line with this, hike to it. When I'm at it, I'm going to pull this out again, line it up to see the next boulder, tree, or edge of a lake that I can positively identify when I'm standing on it, hike to it, and do the same thing again. On our map, to do this, and it might be in order to get to a certain area, you'll need to go at this heading for so long, and then change to this heading for so long. And you'll end up seeing on a test potentially where it will say what at this coordinate, what is the feature that you see. So like in the last video, you need to figure out the coordinate, and I'll say the coordinate lands me right on this oil well right here, or maybe we'll say this drill hole. I can see the drill hole right there. So it puts me there. And then it might say on the next question, from that drill hole, if you were to walk at a heading of 295 degrees, what will you run into in 2 miles? So you would have to figure out what 290 degrees is. 280 is due west. 290 will be just a little off. So I'll go this way for measure 2 miles. And I come across benchmark BM 5018, or intersection of the road. So you'll want to pay attention to those things so that you can know it, but you have to be able to do it first. 2 ways to do it. The way I've always done a mapping compass was to orient my map to magnetic north, or true north, and then my compass doesn't really matter if it's pointing magnetic north. To do that, I need to know what my declination is, 10 degrees, and I am west of the Mississippi, so I subtract, so I would come to 350. And again, my desk is going to completely mess this up, but I would line the edge of my compass up with the edge of my map and turn the map with the compass until, as I call it, red Fred is in his shed. My map is pointing true north. So then I can take my compass, and I've already adjusted for declination. So if I do 290 here, and I'm at the oil well, or the drill hole, I can spin this to 290, draw a line however far I need. I'm going to take my ruler for this and lay my ruler alongside of it. And I can just follow my ruler for 2 miles till it shows me where I'm going to get to. So I hope that makes sense. And again, we can practice more. But the other thing that I want to show you is, and kind of the way that the book talks about it and the PowerPoint talks about it also, is if you don't want to have to worry about orienting your map but you'll have to do some calculating later on, is you can use the orienting lines on your compass. So these lines, red lines under here, are orienting lines. Then it doesn't matter if our map is pointing to north, but I have to have some north-south lines on my map. Turns out these red ones are pretty straight north-south. These blue UTM lines are close. A lot of times you can use those if they're pretty close. It'll be a little bit off, but you can use it. But since I know that these red lines here are pretty straight north-south, I'm gonna make this easy on myself. So if I'm at this drill hole and I know I need to go 290 degrees, I can set my compass to 290 degrees. So right under here I'm lined up with 290. I'm at the drill hole. Then I'm going to rotate my compass until one of these red orienting lines lines up with this red north-south line right there. I'm going to line that up. Make sure that's in line with the edge of my compass is in line with my drill hole here. And maybe I'll come back to one of these lines so the straight edge is there. That lines up. This is going to point to 290. I can move my ruler. And you can see if I come off of my drill hole, I'm still coming more or less right to benchmark 5018. So hopefully that makes sense. Nice, quick, easy way to do that. There is a print off on Moodle. It's one of the two. There's the one that has the letters that you take it gives you a number that you'll plot, like say, we'll come back and say it'll be 60 degrees, or so say 66 degrees. And there's a dot in the center you line the edge of your compass up with. And then you'll just spin it until those orienting lines line up. Edge of your compass is going to come out and line up with a letter. It'll either be this way or it'll be this way. So just think of what you're lined up with and what it's pointing to, or think of what letter actually makes sense. And you're going to spell out a statement, 4-word sentence or statement. The other one is going to have lines on your map that just randomly go like this. Actually, it's not even a map, it's just a piece of paper. And there's going to be, say, A for start, B, C, and D. And it's going to ask you what's either your true north or your magnetic north azimuth is of those lines. So make sure your direction of travel arrow is pointing in the direction from A to B. So in this case, if I want to figure out what the azimuth is, somebody didn't radio me an azimuth and tell me to walk in that, but I'm at a certain point and I can see, say you're looking for a lost snowmobiler. You're standing up on top of a ridge and you see a snowmobile down in the valley, and you take your compass and you figure out what that is. And we're going to use our map just to make this work the way I would like it to. And I'm going to say, I know that they're right here. I'm going to take this, line it up. And I have another little line here that's going north-south, fortunately. I'm going to make sure that this points to the north, top of your map. I'm going to spin my dial and make sure can get my orienting lines on this line here. I'm going to spin that dial till my orienting line lines up parallel with that red line on the map. The number that shows up under here is 120. So I know my true north reading is 120 degrees from A to B. From B to C, and I apologize for the dark, the building I'm in, the power is out. They're working on the power system with the city, so I'm doing this by window light. But I'll line that up along that line, and again, spin this until my orienting lines line up. Unfortunately, I don't have any that line up under here, but maybe I can shift this down. There we go, and now I have one in there. You can see it lining up right underneath of there. So this is at 160 degrees. True north. Then that paper is going to ask you a question, what is from C to D, what is magnetic north? So magnetic north from C to D, I'm going to find my true north here. So again, I have that lined up. I'm going to spin this so that north is pointing to the top of my map. Line up those lines and I get, I get 218 true north. Now my map, if we remember, has a 10-degree declination. So I'm 10 degrees off. I'm 10 degrees to the east. So I'm actually going to add 10 degrees to my compass to get my magnetic north. Because I know magnetic north is 10 degrees higher. If I look here, it's moving to the positive sign of my circle, because as we go clockwise, our numbers count up. So I'm going up 10 degrees from true north to tell me what magnetic north is. So true north, 218. Magnetic north is 228. So that's how that one's going to work out for you. So you'll want to just make sure that, and there's going to be a map on the test that's going to have some information that says what is the azimuth or the bearing or the heading from the intersection of road XYZ to peak, or it'll say Mount Morris. So it's going to want you to find the intersection of that road. We'll say this is that intersection. And right here is the top of the peak. You'll want to draw a line from that intersection to that peak right here. Set your compass on your map so that you can see your orienting lines on your compass and your north-south line on your map, pointing in the direction from intersection to peak, your direction of travel. Make sure your spin it so your north goes to the top of your map, which is north. And line up those orienting lines. Got to come down further. My orienting line over here is lined up with this red line here, which tells me that the compass lines up on 132 degrees. So I know that going from this point to this point is 132 degrees. So that's that. If you don't have any extra lines on your map that make it easy enough for you to line up those orienting lines, you can always take your ruler. And I'm going to say, I'm going to come over 5 inches. Where did I put that mark? Right there. Actually 4 inches because I started on the 1. So I'll do that. Since I did it here, I'll do it down there. So I'll come down a little bit, start on my 1, draw 1 at the 5, and I can draw a line. Then I know that this line is my north-south line. It would be beneficial if you had a different color It's just so you don't mix up, and if you're triangulating something, all of a sudden you see this line running through and you have 4 lines, you remember which one is which. But that's just one way that you can try and make sure that you have a north-south line on there if you don't have one. So I hope that makes sense. And we'll talk a little bit more, and we'll practice it before I make you do that written part on that. The final test will be on Moodle, so online for you to take. I'll open it up in a few days here actually. And then once we meet in person, I will have the maps, small maps for you that correspond to the test that you can use and write on and draw on as much as you need. Once we do the field practical part of the navigation test, we're going to have a course set up. It'll be, say, something like this. And maybe be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, kind of like that. And it's going to have a card that's going to tell you where you're starting. You're going to start at A, and you're going to hike at 348 degrees for 200 meters. Maybe, and it won't necessarily be, but we're just going to generically say this is 75 meter space between there, 125 space there, 50 space there. So you need to go 205 meters at 345 degrees. So I'm going to set my compass to 345, but you'll have to know whether you're setting it to magnetic or true. If the question says go at 345 true north, that's actually going to be, so actually 345, sorry. It's right there. 345 true north is 335. So then you'll follow that, which I ballparked it, but we're going to pretend is going to take you from A to G. So on your answer sheet, you're going to write that you started at A, 345 degrees, 205 meters. You wound up at G. And then it's going to rely on you getting that one right, because then the next one is going to say from that point, go at 195 for 205 meters. What do you wind up at? Just happens because I'm making this up. That's going to take you there. So we'll want to know what this number is, we'll want to know what these are. You'll want to pay attention to that. And there might be an instance where it says hike from A at 345 degrees, and then it just wants to know what is the next letter that post that you walked into, what the letter was, and how far did you have to go to get there. So it should, if you do it just right, you would be walking this way and you say, oh, there's F and B, but I'm not really next to those. I should keep walking, and you will eventually hit one. There shouldn't be anything that is too close to get you off. That's pretty close, but if you're 15 feet off of that and you know you're following the right direction, you're going in a straight line, that's not your correct post that you want. You want to keep going until you actually hit a post. So we'll explain that in more detail once we are doing it, but just be aware of that. So any questions, comments, leave them in the forum spot. Or you can email me as well, but I definitely suggest put them in there if it's just a generic question involving navigation, map and compass, stuff like that. So this is real quick down and dirty, but looking specifically at what your test is going to ask you about. So you'll want to make sure that you're aware of that. On the test, when it's asking for distances, it's going to want within so many meters. If it wants a coordinate, it's going to want within so many meters. So you have a little bit of leeway, but it's not a huge amount. So you want to be as careful and clear as possible.